Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video, and this time it will be another one of those analysis with a fellow chess member. So, of course, our chess member is playing white, and I'm playing black, so let's get to it, shall we? So, white plays e4, I play knight c6, and this is what is called the Nimzowitsch defense. And the Nimzowitsch defense is kind of tricky because after d4, play d5, right? Challenging the center, but you challenge the center as well. Let's say you take, queen takes, and now I'm threatening this pawn, right? And I'm threatening to bring it out with this pawn break. So I'm threatening a few things. Usually people don't capture. They usually play e5, but then this bishop gets loose. So it depends. Black has plans of pawn to e6, knight out, bishop out, but you know, all those things are different. But usually that's the plan for black. So let's go back. I'll play d5, and now our chess club member plays knight c3. Also a good move. So after takes the pawn, I was thinking maybe our chess club member would play d5. Then I would play knight e5, right? Then let's say knight takes e4 happens. In this case, I would play e6 and try to challenge this pawn, right? And after takes, trade off queens, get the bishop out, and that's what I was trying to do. That could have been an alternative, right? But instead, I also thought about takes, e5, knight here, white playing this queen move, right? Attacking this knight and the pawn. Knight moves back, queen takes, knight comes up, queen comes here, right? It's all okay. It's like not bad for black, but it's not necessarily great. So I wanted to mix things up. I wanted to see how our fellow chess club member would react. So I played e5. Very odd looking move, first of all. White has to think of, do I capture this way? Do I capture this way? Do I capture that? And then I have threats of, do I capture that? Do I capture that? So sort of create this sort of chaos in the center. So here's my thought. If white takes this, I take this pawn with a knight, right? Bishop comes up, and then I play bishop out, try to keep this knight cemented here. Knight comes out, get this bishop here, pin these guys, right? So that was one of my thoughts. My other thought is, if you take here, I'm going to play pawn up. You stick your knight in, I'm going to challenge it. You take it with my queen, challenge this pawn again. You play f4, I play something like f6, right? Or I could play something like g5, you know, break up this guy. So if takes, something like that. Knight f3 to support this pawn. Remember that I can pin your knight and sort of keep an eye on things. So that's what I was thinking. Let's see, did I miss anything? I thought maybe white could also play this bishop move, you know, pin the knight to the king. I thought that wasn't bad either. And I thought, you know, why not do the same thing? Because it's allowed. Takes here, right? You might think, okay, I got this guy, I got him pinned. But queen takes d5 is so powerful now. I have threats of taking the bishop because the knight is pinned. The knight cannot take this bishop because this knight is pinned. So remember that. And remember, I have this nasty, nasty threat of this pawn and taking the rook. So that's why taking this wouldn't be a good idea. But what about taking this? Right? If I play here, there's a move you gotta see. A3. This is the move, because this way, if I take with a pawn, if I take the knight here, you take my bishop. If I go back, then you move your pawn up. And this knight, once I move back, is no longer in this sort of pin. This pawn sort of disconnected this diagonal. So then I'd have to move the bishop back, or I just take this right away. Both of which work, but white would be much better in this situation. So in this case, it's really hard to judge, but the best move would probably be taking this pawn. It's not very easy to see. I wouldn't see it really easily either, because I have to, consider all these alternatives, right? Take here. Do I get my other knight out, right? There's so many things that we need to think about. And sometimes it's good to stop and think about them before you make a move. Because as we saw, this move leads to problems. So we want to try to stop and think about things. So our chess club member played knight f3. Instantly, in fact. So I was like, okay, I'll take this. Knight takes. And I take it this way. Because here's the thing, I was planning, okay, knight takes here, queen d5. Threaten this guy, threaten this guy. There's no way to protect both of them at the same time. So the only move for white would be to threaten my knight, right? And after, let's say, something like c5, then white can play check here, pawn up. But that's really hard to see. That's something, if you want to hold on to these knights, right? First of all, you got to see that these two knights are not savable. One of them is not going to be saved. So you have to, the best way of defense is attack. And that's usually the saying, but you really want to be able to see, if you can't save your own pieces, try to go for one of your opponents. So obviously this is hard to see. So let's go back to this. Knight takes, knight takes. And our chess club member played knight takes. Perfectly fine. Played queen takes because, up one pawn in comparison to these 6, right? So I was like, why not trade? Take, bishop c4. Perfect move. Although something better would have been bishop f4, threaten this guy, and then also threaten to castle queenside and get the rook to attack this pawn, right? So for example, I played, say I played c5, right? Then you play castles. Let's say I played bishop e6. Then you have something like bishop b5. And here's where white's development will help, because it's going to look really good, and these two guys are not helping. So that's an advantage of really being able to develop and attack things at the same time. So let's keep going. Bishop c4 was played in the game. Perfect. Bishop f5, f3. Great move. Knowing that this knight is key, because if knight moves back, I take the pawn, play check, bishop takes, knight takes. I took the pawn. I decided, you know what? I gotta take every pawn that I get, because, usually beginners like to think about material a lot. How much pawns, how many bishops we have, and so earning pawns is like small tokens. So even earning the small tokens sometimes is not bad. So castles 97. So I'm definitely behind on development. Rook e1, rook d8. Here I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to castle because the rook is going to take the knight, right? So I'm going to protect the knight and then castle. But then rook f2 comes. Perfect move. Wanting to come here, double up on the knight. So I played d3, eliminate that square. Then knight b3 comes. Knight b3 with the intention, slide the rook in, get the knight up, and take this pawn. Perfect move, by the way. King d8, king f8. I was thinking, okay, I have to move my knight now because if I don't get this guy into the game, it's over. Rook d2, knight g6, rook e3, knight f4. I thought, okay, have to protect this guy no matter the cost. Because if this guy's gone, this rook is looking bad and it's not looking great for me. And so here, what's weird is that our chess club member resigned. And I thought that this was a really good position for him. Because, first of all, it's looking clumsy here. Second of all, a really hard move to spot would be knight a5. Right? You might think that this pawn is, why this pawn? Right? The thing is that if I play b6, slide your way here, say I get my rook up, now you take this guy, and you come swindle me here. So it's not very easy for me to actually make a move. So, I always recommend that you don't want to resign until you know it's completely over. Like, if you're down a queen, and you got no chances of stirring up counterplay, then it may be a lost cause. But I want you, as chess players, to not back out right away. Because, backing out is like giving up. And of course, you don't want to give up. So, d4, d5. So, let's see a few of the mistakes. I would say knight f3 here. We could have taken some time to think about it because there were all these moves. There was taking here, so there were all these moves that we could consider. So I guess taking a little time here was, I guess, a better decision. Now, bishop c4. Remember that maybe attacking with the tempo and castling the next move are a little bit better, but I think bishop c4 is also really good. Bishop f5, f3, bishop d2. It's fine. And here, I would suggest king takes to prevent this bishop from taking the pawn. So after this, we just played really well because I was trying to find ways to try to develop these guys, and they never developed. So really, just props